It wouldn't be Christmas time without atheists claiming Mary didn't give God consent. Even some Catholics have climbed on the bandwagon before and claimed that the Protestant God basically SA'd Mary. Very sad.
Even if Mary were an adult and not a teenager, she wouldn't be fully free to say yes to pregnancy through the incarnation. If a woman thinks that she needs to say yes to pregnancy or else she will be harmed, that's tantamount to rape. And here's where the dogma of the Immaculate Conception comes into play to answer this objection.
And here we have a clip Alex O'Connor put out from his interview with Bart Ehrman, who does exactly that, and says that our Bibles mistranslate words to hide this from us. Let's listen.
She has a visitation from the angel Gabriel, who tells her that she's going to conceive. And she says, well, I'm the slave of God. Do with me what you will. When you start thinking about that for a second, it's troubling. The angel doesn't say, is this okay with you? You all right with this, Mary? It's that this is going to happen. And she says, well, I'm your slave. And the assumption is, well, of course, she's going to be happy about this. The text doesn't say anything about her being happy about it, but they submit to the will of God. It is striking that she doesn't say, I'm your servant, I'm your slave.
Now, some have pointed out disagreements over the translation of this word, but I'm going to skip that part since it doesn't really matter. On my channel, I try to give you practical information that you'll remember easier and have immediate access to. You aren't going to remember the intricacies of the meaning of a specific ancient Greek word that's only relevant in one argument. We need only look at more of the text to see that Bart neglects to mention important details. In Luke 1:46-49, Mary says, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior, for he has looked on the humble estate of his servant. For behold, from now on all generations will call me blessed, for he who is mighty has done great things for me, and holy is his name." Does that sound like someone submitting out of fear or begrudgingly obeying? No. But Bart doesn't mention that part of the text, does he? But are publishers hiding information from us? Ehrman mentions translators and publishers disagreeing, and it's implied that this is quite scandalous.
You said a second ago, not servant, but slave. The NIV has, I am your servant, or I am the Lord's servant. Do you think that that's a mistranslation? Do we know that she really meant something more like a slave here?
Yeah, we do. The word is doule, and it means a person who's owned by someone else and is required to do with what they ask. There are separate words for servants, which would be somebody who serves somebody willingly, but they're not owned by the other person. The reason, especially in American translations, for not using the word slave is because translators are afraid that people will conjure image of African-American slavery. And so the word is slave. It's absolutely slave. But many translators translate it as servant. By the way, the NRSV committee voted for slave, but the National Council of Churches that published the NRSV decided to change it, even though they weren't the translators.
Really?
Yeah.
However, there really isn't a scandal here. This is what I would call technical accuracy versus connotative accuracy. It's no big deal at all. Translating something is about transmitting meaning to an audience. So, assuming Bart is right about this word meaning slave as in ownership, rather than servant, that doesn't mean he's right about translating it to slave for the particular audience this translation was made for. We change words and reorder things all the time in translating languages because we want clarity. Translating "Me gusta el jugo de naranja" from Spanish to English requires reordering the words and even eliminating some of them. Why? Because conveying the meaning is more important than absolute literal accuracy. "Me like the juice of orange" is not what I mean. What I mean is, I like orange juice. Likewise, if connotative considerations outweigh technical considerations, then it's perfectly fine to translate it as servant. In certain Western countries, the word slave invokes images of extreme abuse that aren't accurate to what the word in Greek means. And it's especially not the case in this context. The word servant doesn't. Therefore, even if Ehrman is right, servant is a perfectly correct word to use. So Mary didn't refuse the Lord's prophecy, and she was indeed a humble and willing servant of his. Merry Christmas and God bless.
Trees on fire, Santa's holding the lighter. My parents are both liars. I got gifts but one subscribers. Thanks for the candy basket. Oh God, another jacket. My stocking's filled with acid. Am I dreaming? What just happened?